Give me understanding, and I shall keep the law. Yes, I will absorb it with my whole heart. Good morning.
Good morning.
What a beautiful day. I'm Cheryl, and I am a seminary student. And as always, I'm honored to be here this morning to serve all of you. Please stand as you're able for our opening hymn, Come Now is the Time to Worship, and remain standing for the prayer of invocation and the Lord's Prayer. Please join me in prayer. Father, Mother God, we thank you for the opportunity to gather here with our like-minded friends. We are aware of all the blessings you provide for us daily. Please help us to be aware of the gifts that we are given. Allow us to learn to use these gifts for the highest good of all. We ask for your blessings upon all beings of the earth and the universe. Let none be forgotten. May all know the bliss of your unconditional love and blessings. Let us now affirm our prayer by praying the prayer that Jesus taught to his disciples. Our Father, which art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done, on earth as it is in heaven. Give us this day our daily bread, and forgive us our trespasses, as we forgive those who trespass against us. And leave us not in temptation, but deliver us from error. For thine is the kingdom, and the power, and the glory, forever and ever. Amen. You may be seated. Now is the time that we go over our principles, which is the cornerstone of our faith here at the Metaphysical Church. We're just going to read them off the screen in unison. We believe in God as infinite intelligence. We believe that the phenomena of nature, both physical and spiritual, are the expression of infinite intelligence. We affirm that a correct understanding of such expression and living in accordance therewith constitute true religion. We believe in personal responsibility and that we create our own happiness or unhappiness as we live in harmony or discord with natural, physical, and spiritual laws. We affirm that the existence and physical identity of the individual continues after the physical world. We affirm that communication with spirit is a natural experience, as demonstrated through mediumship. We affirm that examples of prophecy and healing found in the Bible and other sacred texts are divine attributes found in all people. We believe that the highest morality is contained in the golden rule, do unto others as you would have them do unto you. We affirm that the doorway to reformation is always open to any soul, here or hereafter. Thank you. Our meditation music today is going to be, I Would Like to Teach the World to Sing by the New Seekers. Many of you may recognize this music because they used it for a Pepsi Cola commercial. But it is a beautiful song, it's delightful, and it has some wonderful affirmations for peace and love in it. So please relax and listen to the words and forget about the advertisement.
I'd like to build the world a home and furnish it with love. Grow apple trees and honey bees and snow white turtle doves. I'd like to teach the world to sing in perfect harmony. I'd like to hold it in my arms and keep it company. I'd like to see the world for once all standing hand in hand and hear them echo through the hills for peace throughout the land. Like the song I hear, let the world sing together.
please join me in a meditative spirit? Close your eyes gently and take yourself to that special place, that sacred place inside that is quiet and filled with peace and love. We are going to do a visualization in this place. We are going to build a place where people can gather, and we're going to furnish it with love. A place where all people can be in harmony and hand in hand so that there is peace. Our goal is to build a place for people to meet that promotes harmony. This is our intention. Let us assume that we are now manifesting this intention. Move that thought into your third chakra and let it penetrate there. Now see this place of peace and harmony where we all can gather, as if you just stepped into it and it's happening now. Where are you? Are you inside a building? Or are you outside in nature? See it now. Who is with you? What kind of people? What are their attitudes? What do they feel like? See it and feel it as if it were happening to you now. And what are you feeling? It should be joy. It should be love, blissfulness, happiness. What is your expression? You should be smiling. What would you look like to others there? What would others look like to you? Our emotions are just energy in motion, so feel the emotion. Feel the goodness. Feel the joy, the love. Allow yourself to get closer, to get inside of this experience. Feel yourself exhilarated and peaceful at the same time. Just let that feeling sparkle inside of you and move from your feet to your head and back down again and around and out your arms and all around, building a cocoon of comfort and harmony and peace. Now, turn your palms down on your knees, and I want you to put that experience into your body, into every cell, every molecule, every emotion that you're feeling, every vision that you're seeing, every bit of happiness. Allow the energy to settle in. Let it settle in until you feel that in your body, until you feel that tingling and that serenity. And remember this place that you built. Remember what it looked like, what it felt like, who was there. And now come around, back to the chapel with that memory firmly in your mind as we turn the lights up. How many of us are good carpenters? Could you actually build something or see something? I hope so. The scripture this morning is Luke 10:19. Behold, I will give you the power to tread on snakes and scorpions and overcome the power of the enemy, and nothing shall harm you. We are all born with great powers. They're called the 12 powers of man, and they are the gift of the Creator to us. As a gift, it's our responsibility to learn how to control and use these gifts for the greatest good. We're going to go to the Old Testament in the book of Judges. You have to remember the Old Testament is a tale of how your spiritual development unfolds, from creation to the story of Job, and then with the appearance of Jesus Christ, the Christ, we are reborn. So we're still back in the time when people were paying attention to the law of Moses. They hadn't matured yet to the higher energy of Jesus the Christ. But these are still important attributes that we can help to build our spiritual life. There are 12 judges in all, and these 12 judges were the first appearance in the Bible of the 12 powers of man, but they are incomplete. And they are incomplete because they do not have the energy of Jesus the Christ. But each disciple, the 12 powers were not complete until he picked disciples, and then each disciple represented a different power. But today we're going to discuss the powers of man, exhibited by the energy represented by what I feel are the 4 of the most important judges: Deborah, Gideon, Jephthah, and Samson. We're not going to consider them as people, we're going to consider them as the energy that they represent. Metaphysically, they symbolize the usage of judgment faculty and overcoming errors in our consciousness, which interfere with the progress of our spiritual unfoldment. We all make errors. The energy of the enemies, each one of them had an enemy. So the energy of their enemies stand for our errors in thinking, feeling, and attitudes. And each judge illustrates a matter of using judgment to subdue and overcome the error that their enemy represents. Deborah represents judgment based upon spiritual discrimination. We all have a fine sense of discrimination when we use it. By this pure state, we mean the ego is not involved. And the only way to overcome the ego is to understand this law and keep constantly unified with judgment based on inner discrimination. The adverse thought would be something including negative energy, or that would have a negative action or outcome. When we are confused with an issue, we have to immediately consult our inner discrimination or guidance. To be on the correct path, we have to be in perfect union with infinite wisdom. We have to allow our discerning spirit to match that of spirit wisdom, divine wisdom. And that has to accompany us every step of the way. Because as we make progress with issues, things change. It's not always the same. And new aspects develop. So we have to be in conscious contact with wise discrimination of divine wisdom at every step. And that, of course, includes really looking at our own discrimination, praying and meditating and making it match. Now, Deborah chose Barak as her warrior helper. And Barak represents will. So we have spiritual use, but we put our will to it too. Because our will should never lead us into action without good judgment. We have free will, we know that. But our will has to be controlled. If we have the energy of good judgment working in unison with the energy of will to overcome their enemies were the Canaanites. And that energy contains strong and stubborn belief in the supremacy of materiality and sensuality. These two things are things that if we think about too much, they would be adverse to our spiritual growth. They're neither good or bad by themselves. It's the degree on which we focus on them. They can block our growth because they are very ego-driven. And we see Canaanite energy in our own society all the time. How many advertisements do you look at a day involving materiality or sensuality? It's everywhere. The next judge is Gideon. His energy is the use of judgment united with the refusal faculty. This is the proper use of the technique called denial. Denial in our society has become a bad word. If you deny, you're not facing the truth. But there's a positive way to use it. His enemies were the Midianites, and their name means strife or contention. They were the consciousness of attitudes of strife and anxiety. How many of us battle with petty quarrels, jealousies, uncharitable thoughts that come back over and over again and cause anxiety and strife and contention in our lives? It's hard to overcome these thoughts with just positive thought. You have to use positive denial. You have to realize that these things are not real. They are your thoughts. Your thoughts created them. They do not have any reality on their own. If you can deny them with an assurance of the power and love of God, you can destroy strife. We cannot allow irritability to become a habit. It can lead to a general souring of our whole nature, and our spiritual unfoldment is stopped in its tracks because of that. We can apply the law of denial by first meditating upon a central thought of spiritual judgment. And then we will realize that spiritual judgment will throw its spiritual light into our mind and dissipate the darkness and ignorance. And then we can speak the words of victory, for truth truly destroys error and the irritability caused by strife and contention. Jephthah is the next judge, and he represents judgment inspired by zeal in the cause of truth. He understood that your thoughts should persist in holding to good and perfection. That's what we should have on our mind. He believed that through Jehovah, the I Am, a person's thoughts could be unified with the idea of wholeness. The idea of truth and understanding, and we would have the perfection of thought needed to live a spiritual life. The energy of Jephthah would be the judgment faculty set free from cardinal thought and desire and restored to its rightful place in consciousness. The Ammonites were his enemy, and they stand for impure, ignorant, and disorderly thought. This would place this kind of activity in the mind strongly in relation to thoughts and attitudes about personal gain, sex, and sensuality in general. Again, these things aren't bad in themselves, but our thinking regarding them can become negative, selfish, and disorderly. True thought will destroy impure ignorance. True thought will destroy disorderly thoughts and establish the soul in purity and truth. And the body has peace, allowing us to pursue our spiritual unfoldment. Next we have Samson. Now you all know the story of Samson, so we're not going to go into it, but his energy represents judgment used with great strength. But the cause of his strength was understanding. Any of us can obtain that great strength and understanding if we put our trust in Spirit. The Philistines were the enemies, and they opposed all true spiritual advancement. Spiritual life requires discipline. We have to be disciplined to move forward. If we wish to advance, we must have acquired understanding and be strong in that understanding to fight against any thoughts that are not spiritual truths. The Philistines had very bad thoughts and attitudes towards any kind of religion. They didn't like spiritual truth. And they had a tendency to latch on and even worship anything that was strange and bizarre in the way of religion. We often latch on to juicy conspiracy theories about groups of people we don't care for, or other distractions. These things pull us away from understanding the spiritual truths, again, preventing our spiritual growth. There is something about the purity of metaphysical truth which irritates that Philistine energy and brings forth very hostile reactions which are quite unreasonable. Quite a few of us, I'm sure, have a lot of run-ins with people with Philistine tendencies. And coping with it requires strength and understanding. We have to guard our own thoughts and be careful that we concentrate our attention on the right thing and do not allow ourselves to be influenced by these people. Samuel was the last judge before Israel had kings. And Samuel represents the inner voice, through whose expression we come into a larger realization of ourselves. This is perhaps the most important. His energy is the small voice at the heart center, where judgment and wisdom occur. We have to be able to hear it. We make our connection to God by building up a consciousness of divine ideas. If we keep our attention on good thought, prayer, meditation, and realization, we are receptive to Spirit. We are obedient, fearless, and we get candor that is essential to living with the communion of the inner voice. Jehovah called in the night to Samuel. Samuel thinks it is the priest Eli calling. So he responds, "Here I am." Eli tells him he has not been called. A similar experience happens to us a lot. We hear, but we do not understand. But as we go into our unfoldment and do the work, we finally come to a place where we know this is Spirit talking to us. We recognize it. Samuel shows no irritation at being called several times, but simply obeys by replying, "Here I am," each time he's called. On the fourth occasion, Jehovah speaks again. Samuel very simply responds with, "Speak, for thy servant hears you." This gives us the nature of that which Samuel symbolizes, a combination of judgment, humility, and a willingness to serve. It's not going to help us to get the message if we're not going to listen to it. When we have made union with Spirit, we get messages from Spirit that leads us to understanding, that leads us to right action, that leads us to personal peace and harmony, so that we can stay centered even when the storm is around us. So there are certain things that we have to do that the judges can teach us. We have to put away all of our false gods. We have to forget about materiality. We have to forget so much about the sensuality and all the energy around us that focuses on our body, our senses, and stay more in the realm of our spirit. If all of our scattered forces are brought together and we concentrate on that, we are really better equipped to undertake the tasks of life. It helps us to organize, to be with like-minded people. When we gather here and we talk, we have a singleness of thought and purpose, and we can keep our attention on the direction to which we aspire without distractions. Attending functions where we are surrounded by Minded people helps us to keep on the path. And by looking away from forces of distraction and negativity, we can discern the action of God in meeting various situations in life. And we always have to maintain our perfect relationship with the movement of principle, regardless of whatever arises. Whatever energies come against us, we have to be firm and remember who we are, what our beliefs are, and not give in to the ego desire to fight back or to convince the other person that they're wrong. We don't need to do that. We know that we are right. We have to practice good spiritual discrimination. And we should never, ever, ever allow our will, our own separate willpower, to lead us into action unless we have good judgment to base that action on. Denial of certain thoughts is important. You are allowed to deny thoughts that you do not want. You just say, no, you don't exist. These ideas really are not real. They only exist in our thoughts. Remember, our strength of spirit comes from understanding. That once we pay attention and we focus and we get understanding, we will have great strength in our spirit and can put our total trust in spirit. We make our connection to God by building up a consciousness of divine ideas, which just goes along with everything else. If we keep our attention on divine ideas other than thoughts of other things, we can build up a connection. And that connection is accomplished through thought, prayer, meditation, and realization. And we can all hear that little voice, and all understand it, and all follow it. So we were all born with great powers. We're more powerful than we ever realize. And they're called the 12 powers of man. We talked about 4 of them. If we can learn to demonstrate these 4 powers, we are well on our way to living a full, rich spiritual life that allows for our spiritual advancement daily. And that is really what we're looking for. And so it is.